Martin Scorsese's crime thriller The Departed gave the veteran film director his first and as of yet only Oscar win. The movie follows Leonardo DiCaprio's Billy and Matt Damon's Colin as they look to navigate their way through life avoiding detection and exposure as undercover agents. Billy, an undercover cop in Jack Nicholson's Irish Gang, and Colin, an officer in the Boston police force, secretly working for Nicholson's Frank Costello. Both molds lead stressful lives, given the sheer amount of danger they're constantly in, and both end up seeing the same psychiatrist, romantically speaking. Colin actually settles down with her, and they have a successful relationship. That is, of course, until she finds out all about his actual job. Now, Scorsese's film is a very detailed picture, one where there are many things going on in the background that only become apparent upon multiple viewings of the film. For example, similar to how the appearance of an orange marks the death or near miss of a character in The Godfather, characters are marked for death in The Departed through the use of X's in the background. Another example would be that eventually towards the end of the film, it is revealed that mob boss Frank Costello was most likely impotent, and this is foreshadowed in a scene where his wife is reading a book on how to get pregnant. One such detail that some fans of the movie have speculated on is the sexual orientation of Colin Sullivan. That's right, in and amongst the shootouts, the betrayals, the lies and deception, an all-important question has arisen. Was Colin a gay? This is actually quite a popular fan theory, and one of the most discussed aspects of the movie, another being whether the gangster Delahunt was actually an undercover cop, something which I've already made a video on. Despite being married to Vera Farmiga, many do believe that Colin was in the closet. So let's take a look at this claim and see if we can come up with an answer. First of all, let's collate the possible evidences which point to Colin batting for the other side. Number 1. When he was a kid, he was an altar boy at a Boston church. Okay, I'm not even going to touch that one. Actually, I will say that Costello does actually bring up abuse in the church to a priest. Maybe Colin was abused as a child and it messed him up sexually. Anyway, early on in the film, during a sports game between the police force and firefighters, Colin repeatedly uses homophobic slurs, calling the firemen fucking queers and then fucking homos. And a while later after the game, he repeats the slur, saying fucking firefighters are a bunch of homos, seemingly with no provocation or reason to do so. This obviously doesn't instantly label Colin as a gay, but it's worth noting as it's a cliché character trait of extremely homophobic characters in movies and TV shows to be secretly gay themselves. Later on, there's an awkward exchange with a real estate agent when Colin is checking out the place that will eventually be his new home. The estate agent asks if Colin is married after mentioning that he's a cop, signalling that this is a big apartment. Colin gets noticeably irritated, snapping back that he has a co-signer, and there's multiple ways to interpret this scene. One, of course, being that Colin is annoyed at the idea that he wouldn't be able to afford the place on his own with the pay of a cop, and his co-signer, or the guy putting up the cash for the place, is of course Frank Costello. However, if you subscribe to the gay theory, this could be one of the many clues of Colin's hidden homosexual tendencies, given his irritated nature at the question of marriage being brought up, and the realtor saying, "Oh, I get it, you tend to have a house guest," can also imply that he has clicked that Colin is gay. And then there's this exchange between Colin and Captain Ellerby, played by Alec Baldwin.
How's your wedding coming along?
Great. She's a doctor.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
Marriage is an important part of getting ahead. Lets people know you're not a homo. Married guy seems more stable. People see the ring, they think at least somebody can stand the son of a bitch. Ladies see the ring, they know immediately you must have some cash and your cock must work.
Yeah, it's working. Overtime.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, the term homo is referenced in this scene, with Ellerby specifically stating that getting married lets people know you're not gay, which could be the reason why Colin gets married in the first place, in that no one will suspect his gayness. And on the topic of cocks working, and perhaps the biggest indicator that Colin's favourite Sopranos character is Vito, is the scene between him and Vera Farmiga's Madeline, where after an awkward silence, she asks whether he wants to talk about last night, and then says it's alright, guys tend to make too big a deal out of it, it's actually quite common, and then Colin quickly says he has to go to work and leaves. Interesting. Maybe some viewers also want to make something of the apparent phallic imagery of Madeline peeling a banana, taking it out and eating it. In another scene, Colin awaits Frank Costello at an adult theatre and seems to be the only person in the audience uninterested in the shenanigans going on screen. In fact, he actually looks pretty disgusted and uncomfortable by it. Near the end of the film, it is revealed that Madeline is pregnant, and though it's heavily implied that the baby is actually Billy's, Colin of course doesn't know this. When Madeline tells him, his reaction can be interpreted as genuine disbelief. There's a few other small little things here and there also, like Costello shoving a dildo in Colin's direction and joking, "See anything you like." That obviously doesn't mean Costello thinks Colin is gay, but it might be the film trying to tell us something. Some people even think that Colin whistling at a woman's ass after ensuring that someone is watching him do this also signals that he is a gay man trying to pass as straight. So as you can see, there are a few pointers that lead in the direction of Colin being gay, and for the sake of discussion, it's a conversation worth having. So let me give you my thoughts on this. First of all, I think all the numerous underlying and ambiguous clues in the film implying that Colin is gay are substantial enough that I don't see a problem with someone watching the film and thinking, hey, you know what, I think Colin was gay, and he has to hide and repress his homosexual tendencies because of the uber macho lifestyle he was in, and because he grew up in a Catholic Boston culture. So if you think that he was gay, I don't have a problem with that, and I can see why someone would come away with that conclusion, and in some ways it adds to the layers that this film has, and certainly adds to the fact that everyone in the film is living a lie, and in this case, Colin might be even lying to himself. There's other possible references to homosexuality, like when Frank Costello says to his wife, "You're giving me a hard-on," and she replies, "Are you sure it's me? Not that talk about whiffing and crawling up asses?" And his angry reaction is telling. I mean, you could go on and on and on with this forever, like the wife also saying to him, "Let me straighten you out," when she approaches him. And the opposite of straight is of course bent, which is a slang term for homosexuality. However, I myself do not subscribe to this theory, for many reasons. I do think it's interesting though. First of all, none of the mentioned reasons necessarily imply that Colin is gay. I don't think any of them are strong enough to warrant this. They are weird, and they do point to something, which I'll get to in a bit. But jumping to the conclusion that Colin is gay is a stretch. It's reaching, and in a way does the film a disservice by ignoring some of the central underlying themes to bring about a pretty generic conclusion that all of these little clues simply amount to Colin being gay. Yes, these instances can be odd, like his impotence, but the reason being he's a homosexual is just one of the many possible reasons. And it also ignores the fact that surely Colin has had sexual relations with Madeline. It's not as if every night is like this. And if he's able to perform on numerous occasions and then not on some, that does not in any way imply he's gay. If anything, it suggests he needs to see a doctor. During the Hays Code era, many characters in films were supposed to be gay, such as Peter Lorre's in The Maltese Falcon, but they weren't allowed to make open references to this, so had to use implied subtext. Sexual acts between people of the same sex became illegal nationwide in the US in 2003, a few years before the release of The Departed. After this, and I don't have any official statistics to back this up, this is just a personal observation, but I started noticing many revisionist articles, blogs and opinions highlighting homosexual subtext in movies. Some of them were interesting, like whether mob boss Phil Leonardo in The Sopranos was gay, which I've made a video on, and some were downright balmy, like one opinion piece I saw about Arnold Schwarzenegger's action flick Predator being a study of repressed homosexuality. Like what? All of a sudden, everyone's gay. Maybe you're gay for clicking on this video. Maybe I'm gay for making it. And I think Matt Damon's character in The Departed is a victim of this outlook, where anyone who acts slightly unorthodox in regards to his relationship with women and his choice of language is all of a sudden reduced to being gay. In a way, I find this offensive because a filmmaker may have constructed a character to be complex and multi-layered, but audiences don't give the character the required critical thought and instead come to the conclusion, oh, he's gay, and in doing so, water down the character's complexity. I believe the reason for Colin being unable to perform is actually quite simple. Leading a double life, I mean not as a gay man pretending to be straight, but as a criminal living a life as a cop, is putting a tremendous amount of stress upon him. And that can be one of the side effects. And all of the other evidences pointed out have reasonable explanations, like the adult theatre for example. There's going to be numerous straight people out there that would be uncomfortable in such a place. Not to mention, Colin is a respected police state detective who would not want to be caught in an adult movie theatre. The clues pointed out by people are good spots. There's quite a few things, which probably means it isn't nothing, but the conclusion is incorrect in my opinion. It misses some of these central themes in The Departed, which are impotency, masculinity and manhood. In this ultra-macho film with practically every male character hardcore, played by some of Hollywood's most testosterone-fueled actors like Mark Wahlberg, Jack Nicholson and Alec Baldwin, the movie makes a strong link between the criminal lifestyle and impotence. The villainous Damon isn't the only one with such issues, as it's later revealed in a crucial scene that Frank Costello was firing blanks, when Damon remarks, "all that fucking and no sons," which infuriates Costello, with an added implication that Damon was the closest thing to a son he had, with him being raised as one as early as his childhood, suggested by the line, "that's my boy," early on in the film. It's also like Damon has got one over Costello in this scene, as in Frank Costello has been trying to have sons and failing, and Madeline's pregnancy showing that Colin will have a son, but of course we as the viewer know that the baby's probably Billy's, so it's quite ironic. Costello being sterile is also implied in another scene where he's with Leonardo DiCaprio and he says, "I don't need pussy anymore," and another, as mentioned, where his wife is reading a book called Getting Pregnant. Both of these characters, Costello and Sullivan, are incapable of having children, it appears, while their counterparts on the flip side of the coin clearly are, with Martin Sheen's Captain Queenan having a grown-up son, and Billy being the father of Madeline's child, who it's revealed is a boy. Both Costello and Sullivan's lines are ended with their deaths, but the heroes, with their virility, live on through their sons, in spite of all four characters dying in the film. There's interesting references made to both their fathers as well, with it being said that Billy's died and Queenan's wasn't around. Billy Costigan is simply superior to Colin. He's a better cop, he's a better gangster, he's even more trusted by Costello as proven by Frank giving him the insurance tapes, he's a better man in more ways than one, and he even bangs his girlfriend, surely the ultimate macho move. Matt Damon's character is attracted to Madeline. The film makes this clear on numerous occasions, but he can't perform. That doesn't mean he's gay. He's homophobic, sure, but it's hardly something to note in such a culture that he's in, where you'd expect most characters are. And you could argue instead that Colin's homophobic rhetoric is a deflection of him trying to project his manhood in front of other men. It's one of the reasons why the realtor touching a nerve with Colin is so significant. Colin is a man who likes to think he's made his own way in life, that he's come up the hard way from South Boston and now has an apartment with an extraordinary view. Women want him, men want to be him, he's made it. But as the realtor's probing highlights, he would in fact be nothing without Costello. Costello probably even paid for his education. He's got him on a leash throughout his life. Colin's missus has no idea that he isn't the man he really is, and its manifested feelings of emasculation. He perfectly fits Queenan's description of people who want to appear to be cops rather than be cops. With masculinity and virality such prominent themes in the film, it's perfectly plausible that Sullivan is simply insecure about his masculinity, a trait which has come about as a result of him living a lie. The evidence presented can point to him being gay. It can point to him being molested as a child. It can point to him suffering from anxiety from being caught. It can point to the stress of having to deal with Costello pressuring him to find the rat or else. It really is quite ambiguous. Was Colin gay?
Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe fuck yourself.
So what's your opinion on Colin? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel and thanks for watching.